Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about two very important leadership concepts that usually don't get talked about. And so today we're going to talk about self leadership and mirroring. And these were topics that we discussed actually on our last Audit Leader Forum call. And just wanted to share them with you today because, again, most leadership trainings actually don't talk about these concepts, which are actually very fundamental concepts that we need to understand as a leader. Because often a lot of the challenges that we have as a leader can go away very quickly when we actually follow some of these principles. And so, as I said, we talked about this in the Audit Leader Forum call this last week. And so I want to share that with you. And the Audit Leader Forum is something that is for all internal audit leaders, managers, directors, vice presidents, and chief audit executives. So all of those people, where we actually, one of the things that we do is actually learn more about leadership, how we can actually be better leaders. Because I'm sure you probably realize that this is the case for a lot of people. Most of the challenges that you have as an internal audit leader come from your staff, they come from your peers, they come from your bosses. And a lot of it can be dealt with and handled very quickly when you start to apply a couple of these concepts that we're talking about today. Now, obviously, we could sit here and talk for days or months about these topics. We don't have that time today. And that's one of the reasons why the Audit Leader Forum is so beneficial. And you can join for only $3 a day. So it's really at an investment point that anyone who is an internal audit leader that wants some help, wants to develop themselves, can afford to become a member of. So there's a link in the description somewhere with that, or you can reach out to me directly. Okay, so let's get into our topic today around self-leadership and mirroring. And so self-leadership should be somewhat self-explanatory. Mirroring may not be to you. And we're probably going to talk about it in two different areas. So again, I'm going to talk about these concepts as the time permits. Now, the first part is self-leadership. And, whether you realize it or not, all leadership is actually self-leadership. Okay, it's not about trying to persuade or manipulate other people to get to do what you want them to do, but it's about being authentic in your leadership style and managing and leading yourself. Because what I have found, in coaching audit leaders for about 15 years now, most of the challenges that they have end up coming back to themselves. It's about something that they could do different. It's about, maybe they're not managing themselves. And so obviously the people around them are not either. And so, as I said, more times than not, the answer comes back to what can we do to change ourselves. Now, I know most people that teach management and teach leadership, they kind of point fingers and they say, well, you need to fix that person. You need to do these things to fix them. Now, I want you to realize every time you point your finger, you've got three fingers pointing back to yourself. And that's what I found in my own life. Anytime that I try to, blame someone else, think someone else is the problem, chances are I'm the problem. And I know it's a tough thing for people to realize, for people to actually, think about and grasp, but it really does make all the difference in the world. So self-leadership, what does that mean? Well, part of it is knowing who you are. And so, there's no one size fits all form of leadership. And again, I know, you may have been told this, that you have to act a certain way, you have to dress a certain way, you have to, do things in a certain way to be a real leader. Well, that's just a belief that people have. And the reality is we're all unique. And we should celebrate our uniqueness, and we should live from a place of authenticity. We should know ourselves, and we should, hold ourselves to that standard, to do it in the way that is best for us, to do things that are authentic to ourselves. Now, part of that is actually knowing yourself. And so, again, part of the leadership journey is actually getting to know yourself better and know what works for you, what doesn't work for you, what you feel is aligned, what you feel you can do from a place of integrity and authenticity, and to not do those other things, right? And so, part of that again is it's knowing yourself. Knowing yourself is part of self leadership. Now, obviously, as humans, we all have errors, we all have flaws. And, a lot of time people talk about our strengths and our weaknesses and how we're supposed to work so much on our weaknesses. And actually, I mean, yeah, if there's certain things that we're doing that are causing problems, maybe they're areas for us to develop. We should work on those things and improving our weaknesses. But even more important than that is actually identifying what your strengths are and leaning into your strengths. Okay. Because actually, you will get a much better return on investment when you are focused on your strengths. And when you use those things that make you unique, that make you, and do so in an authentic way, you'll actually get a much better return for that. So what can that look like, right? Well, if you're someone, let's say, who likes to joke, who is funny, who likes to have fun, right? Well, that is a strength that you have. When people are around you, you crack little jokes, maybe you make funny faces, I don't know, right? Whatever your thing happens to be, but it helps people, right? And so, a part of knowing yourself is, hey, I like to have a good time, I like to make jokes, I like to have fun. Well, that should be built into your leadership style. You shouldn't be the kind of leader that never makes a joke and is always serious all the time, if who you are is someone that likes a joke, right? And so, but you have to know that about yourself. Now, others of you that are listening, you may not be that kind of person. You may be more sincere or sober, or straight laced. I don't whatever terms you might want to use. And for you, using humor may not be the right thing. And so that's what I'm talking about is, one of the parts here is knowing yourself, is actually knowing who you are and then starting to apply some of those things into how you're leading. Okay. So knowing yourself. And again, I can only scratch the surface today because of the shortness of this video. But, more information is out there. We talk about this all the time in the Audit Leader Forum, as an example. Okay. Now, what also related to self leadership? Well, as I said, a lot of times it's something that we can do differently that will make the difference. And so we have to make sure that we are managing ourselves. So as an example, often we may get triggered. Somebody may say something and all of a sudden we feel angry, or we feel self-righteous, or we feel hurt, right? And so, a lot of times when those emotions come up, how well do we do at actually managing ourselves? Because I'll tell you, if you feel angry and you respond from a place of anger, what's probably going to happen? The other person will be angry, anger, 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 and all of a sudden the situation blows up. And now, instead of a small challenge, you may have a huge relationship issue to deal with. And so, as I said, a lot of times, we need to make sure that we're managing and leading ourselves if we're going to be leading other people. Because people watch what you do much more than what you say. And so, again, this is where authenticity comes in. This is where integrity comes in. Your actions have to match your words. If you have a member of your staff who gets angry all the time, and people like this, right? I have people in my life who they just seem angry all the time. Well, if we want them to be different, we can't show up with anger because that's just going to fuel the fire, right, at that point. And instead, right, we need to treat people the way we would like them to be instead of the way that they maybe are. Okay. So again, and there's all kinds of nuances behind this that, today I can't get into all of it, but I'm trying to give you a little bit so that at least you can start thinking about how you may be able to do things in a different way. Okay. And this is where mirroring comes in, because a lot of times our world around us mirrors us. And so if I'm feeling angry, if I am just angry, then guess what? The world around me is going to also mirror that anger. Now, what does that mean practically? The world around me. What are we talking about, Jason? The trees are going to be angry? Well, no, but the people in our lives are going to feel our anger, and they are probably going to move into a place of anger as well. And so one of the tips that I like to always, teach leaders is about a mirror. When you're experiencing something, it's like you pick up a mirror and you look at the mirror and you say, right, do I have anything to do with this? Is what I'm seeing because of something I am doing? And if the answer to that is yes, and you want to change things, then change what you see in the mirror, right? If people around you are angry and you don't want them to be angry and you are angry, then it's maybe time to practice some of that self-leadership and move yourself from a place of anger to wherever else you want to be. And again, there's lots of little tips and tricks on how to do that through breathing, through some other different ways to help move yourself emotionally to where you need to be. So again, if things around you, and like I said, I find this often when I am coaching audit leaders, is that whatever challenge they may be experiencing, a lot of it has to do with the way they are approaching it, and they are not actually managing or leading from the place where they should be. Okay. So, how else could this look, right? It can show up in lots of different ways, right? And most of the time, it has something to do with not having a good relationship with the other person. And so, a lot of times, I remember one coaching call I was on, and this leader was talking about this person on their team, and the issues that they were dealing with, and they've got to fix this, or else this person needs to be fired. And they were looking at some corrective discipline things that they were wanting to do, and they were asking my advice. And probably a little shocking and surprising to them as we went through, it's like, you want to know what your real problem is? Your real problem is you don't have a trusting relationship with that employee. That's why they are acting the way they're acting. So you can go about it two different ways, right? You could go back to the employee and say, hey, you need to do this, and you need to do that, and you need to do this. And if you don't do that, then you're fired. You're out of here, right? You can do it that way. And in fact, that's the way a lot of people would suggest that you do it. What I'm suggesting is that you consider instead, what part do you have to play in this? How can you improve the relationship? Because a lot of times when we improve that relationship, the challenges just go away. They just go away. And not just for the short term, but for the long term, right? Because you can use command and control kind of management to force people to do what you want them to do. You can learn how to persuade and manipulate people and get them to do what you want them to do. But is that the kind of person that you are? And while that may have short-term results, is that really going to have the long-term results that you're looking for? Does it help to win the hearts and minds of the people? Or does it force and coerce them? And the minute that they can get out from underneath you, they will. Right? There's a whole analogy in leadership of a stick and a carrot. Right? So a stick is like the command and control. We can sit there and beat people, hit them with the stick until they do what we want them to do. Or we can develop a relationship and entice them or reward them by doing what we would like them to do. So what kind of a leader are you? Are you the kind that wants to use a stick? That's much easier to do. All I got to do is hand you a stick and you just start hitting people, right? It takes a lot more work and effort, but a lot better long-term results to learn how to do it from a carrot and to learn how to do it from a place of respect and a place of love coming from you for the other person. Okay? So that's one way to look at using a mirror, right? Is when you're dealing with a situation, it's just like you pick up a mirror and you look at it and you say, well, what's my part in this? What responsibility do I have in this? Now, maybe it's something like you didn't set clear boundaries with the person. Okay, that's your responsibility. How are you going to fix it? Well, I need to communicate more clearly the boundaries that I'm expecting, right? And so again, we can go down that a long time, right? We can talk about this for days or weeks or months, right? But I want to give you some little tips for you to take away today. So the first one is, when something comes up, look in the mirror. Are you responsible for something? Is there some way that you can manage or lead yourself better that will help you in this particular challenge that you're dealing with? Okay. The other way to use mirroring is in a way of rapport. And so with rapport, again, you're just getting people to like you, if you want to say it, and not from a fake place, but you're trying to help put people at ease, right? So that they will listen to you. And so mirroring often shows up in physically the way we're doing things, in the words that we're using, but it's a way to help people to feel more comfortable, to get them to relax, and to have some of the real conversations that maybe you need to have. Now, this can work in different ways because under rapport, there's the idea of pacing and leading and mirroring people in their language, mirroring people as well in their physical body language. Okay. And so let's say, for example, someone comes into you and they're angry. They start yelling at you and you can tell that they're really angry. Well, you'd probably rather not have them angry. And so you want to pace and lead them to help move them from a place of anger to a place of something else where at least something productive can come out of it. And so, you can mirror what the other person is doing, or you can try to lead them. So pacing means you're just pacing and doing what they're doing. And you may pace for a little while, and then you try to lead them. And they come or they don't come. If they come, then you're in the place where you want to be. If they don't come, then you go back to pacing. And so in this instance where, somebody shows up, they're angry, their voice is loud, you can mirror back to them what they're doing in your own way, right? A very, easy way to help get people's attention is to use their name, right? And so, if I come in yelling at you and I'm all mad, right? One of the first things you can say is Jason, right? Now, how you say that is up to you, right? If you want to, you can pace them and say it in a way that match. You could yell their name back at them just like they're yelling to you if you want to, right? And that will usually get people kind of to shock. And then you can start leading them to where you want to go. Or instead, right, you can just say their name softly. Jason, 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 right? And eventually the other person will probably calm down. Now, they may or may not. And again, either one of those ways of going about it is acceptable. You have to know yourself and know, right, the authentic way for you to respond to that. Normally, when that happens to me, I want to bring the person from anger into a place of peace and well-being. And so I may start by saying their name softly. Doesn't make me right. You can do it the other way. In fact, somebody on the call, this last week when we were talking about this, that's how she's fireball, right? You come at her with intensity, she's going to come right back at you with intensity until you calm down. That's her preferred method, and it's worked very well for her in her 30-year career. Okay. But it's not because she's angry. That's just how she, chooses to get control of the situation and bring it back to a place of love and respect that who she really is. Okay. And so again, those are a couple of different, suggestions, leadership ideas for you today. And there's more to come because again, I'm going to be talking more and more about this because as I said, most people's challenges come from a lack of self-leadership or them not actually mirroring, both in holding up the mirror and also in mirroring and learning from a rapport standpoint how to pace and lead people. And again, I didn't really touch on it today. I got to kind of go cut off for the day, but it's also in the words that you're using, making sure that you're mirroring and using some of the same language and words other people are. That helps them feel at ease, helps calm them down a little bit, helps them know that you're actually listening to them, right? Because that's one of the big things that everybody wants is they just want to be heard. And as the leader, when you hear other people and they know that you're hearing them, that goes a long ways in that relationship that you have. Okay, so I'm going to cut off for the day. Again, lots more like this in the Audit Leader Forum. And so when you're ready to get started, 7-day free trial to get started, and it's only $3 a day. So hope to see you over there. And like I said, more live videos like this to come. See you on the next video.